I set up. John, take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Chung. So I'm super excited to welcome Carol. Carol is someone that I've known for a really long time. She's managing partner at Ramped, sales expert in every regard. I'm going to leave it to her to formally introduce herself, but I will say that Carol's worked with a bunch of our portfolio companies to great success over the years. We're super excited to have her today. She's going to share a ton of wisdom with this group. We're going to do about 15 minutes of presentation and then 10 or so minutes of Q&A as part of the recorded session, as Chung mentioned. And then we're going to actually go into an off the record for live feedback sessions, which I'm super excited about as well. So without further ado, Carol, I'll kick it to you to do your formal background.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you everyone for showing up today. It's nice to meet all of you, and hopefully I'll get to meet you more one-on-one later on. But to quickly introduce myself before we go into the talk, again, my name's Carol. I'm normally based in New York, in Europe right now, but I've been selling for a little over 12 years. I started as an accidental founder, as I like to joke, back in 2010. I co-founded a company in the CPG space, manufacturing and selling a non-dairy milk. That company was acquired by a bigger beverage company about a year and a half in, and I joined my first tech startup back in 2013 as a founding member of the sales team. I've been a founder member in several startups, 3 of them that have become acquired. And for the past 2 years, I work as a consultant with early stage technical founders, pre-seed to Series A, helping them build and scale their sales playbook. I fundamentally believe that anyone can learn how to sell if they apply themselves. And I also believe that at the very early stage pre-product market fit, there is no better person than the founder to tackle sales. So my focus has been working with early stage companies, getting them from 0 to $1 million in ARR. As John said, we've worked with Basis a lot. We're also a Y Combinator partner. And at this point, I've worked with over 150 companies. So I'm excited to get into the talk. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Bear with me. So we just went through the Meet Carol portion. Okay, so can everybody see this? Awesome, thank you. So how to master founder-led sales? Let's get right into it. So first of all, what is selling? How do we define selling? How do we define sales? Here's my definition of it. What selling is, very simply put, is identifying pain points. What are the pain points that your prospects have? What are their needs? What are the issues that they have in relation to your product? And then after you understand where those issues lie and you're in agreement with your prospects of the issues that they have, then the next step is empowering them by providing them with a solution. So all that sales really is understanding, where is my prospect? What are their bottlenecks? What are their pain points? How are they solving for those right now? And how can my product or my service come in and become a solution for those problems? And that is the simplest and most thorough definition of sales, the way that I see it. It's not being pushy. It's not being the stereotypical used car salesperson that's just trying to sell you. It's really understanding, where is my prospect and how can my product get them to where they want to be? So if this is the definition of selling, then why do people buy? Why will someone buy from us? And in my experience as a salesperson, as a founder, working with founders, I found that people really buy for 3 different reasons, no matter what your product is. Number 1, they believe when they talk to you, when they're having a conversation with you, they believe that you're competent. How can you come across as competent? You're an expert in the industry. You're an expert in the bottlenecks they're having right now. You can speak intelligently to what you've seen in the space, why you crafted your product, the problems that exist. That's number 1. They trust you, the individual. Number 2, they trust the company you work for. They trust the product that you built if you're a founder. They trust that you've found a big existing problem, that you understand what the industry looks like. And again, both you and the company are experts, come across as an authority. There's social proof, there's a brand backing you up, that you know what you're doing. And as a result of 1 and 2, both you and the business, they believe that you can deliver on the expectation that you set. They believe that you can solve their problem. So people buy because of how you present yourself, how you present your company. And at the end of the day, they believe that if they purchase from you, their problem in relation to your product or service is going to be solved. It really is that simple. So why founder-led sales? What I'd love to do before we go into this, I'd love to see in the chat, there's 36 of you on the call. How many of you are doing founder-led sales right now? If you can put a +1, or if you want to write your name, I'd love to start to get a gauge how many people that are here are actually selling. Let's see. Oh, we have a ton. That's awesome. +1 early-ish, says Zach. We have a bunch of +1s. Perfect, guys. Love to see it. So why founder-led sales? Why should founders be selling? Why don't we go hire a bunch of salespeople to do the work for us? I mean, selling isn't fun. It's not always fun, especially when you're trying to figure it out. Why not outsource it? So I can tell you that at the stage where you're at, there is absolutely no better person than you to be selling. Why? A few different reasons. And again, I'm keeping this very simple. Number one, no one knows the product as well as you do. No one will understand better than you at this very early stage what problem that you saw that led you to build the product, how you think you're going to be better than the competition, what the landscape is. And as a result of that product knowledge, when you speak about the product in your company, you're excited, you're passionate, you can't wait to tell the world of how cool this is and how much better than everything else out there. As a result of number one and number two, product expertise and your excitement, your passion, your confidence when you talk, you come across as an expert. You come across as someone I want to talk to because I believe you're going to solve my problem. I don't know how many of you have heard of this definition, but it's one I really love. The idea is to become a chief storytelling officer. What's a chief storytelling officer? A chief storytelling officer is a founder that using stories is able to connect with his or her audience. So here's what happens. When you're able to craft a story, your message is delivered in a very powerful way. You can use logic to explain to your prospects why they should buy from you. You can talk about the features all day long, but the thing is that at the end of the day, sales is emotional. We connect to others emotionally. We believe that they can solve our problems. We believe that they're an expert, everything we just said. And the best way to convey that is by crafting a very well told story of who you are, what you do, why now. And here's something that you guys always want to be remembering. Sales is not this one-dimensional thing where it means I'm just going to go sell to a bunch of customers. When you're talking to your investors and you're asking for money, you're selling. When you're talking to prospects why they should become a paying customers, you're selling. When you're talking to people that you want to have come join your company, your first hires, you're selling. You're selling the dream. You're selling the vision. When you're talking to Forbes and you're on an interview of, how you raised money, how you got to where you are, you're selling. So it's a skill you want to develop and you want to be very deliberate about it. And what's really going to help you be able to sell is by crafting stories. So in order to be able to successfully sell, I want to show you my learnings from working with over 150 startups of the things to really master and the things to avoid. And these are all actionable, and I'll walk you through in as much detail as I can in the time that we have. So please, if you have questions about these, jot them down and we'll go through them in the Q&A. So what are the 5 things to master? Number one, your elevator pitch. What are you selling? Who are you selling it for? How, right? What's your product? Who it is designed to help? How do you do it? I cannot tell you how many founders I speak to every week. I get about 10 to 20 messages on LinkedIn every week saying, hey, Carol, can you please take a look at my elevator pitch? Or, hey, Carol, I want to pitch you. What do you think? 99% of the times, the pitch is terrible. Why? Because it's not structured. It's not a structured elevator pitch where I can quickly understand what problem you're solving, who you're solving it for, how you're
Who's
doing
dad?
it. I'm sorry?
Great day.
I'm sorry, is someone asking a question? No? Okay, moving on. So what I was saying is that the majority of pitches that I hear are very, very bad. And the reason for that is because they're not structured. They're not concise. The idea is that you need to be able to pitch anyone, no matter their industry knowledge or expertise, and your pitch needs to be very clear. So after you deliver it, it will either open the door for a conversation if the person you're talking to is interested in what you're offering, or it will unqualify them, which is okay, but you want to have a very quick way to communicate your message. So for example, when I talk about what I do, I say, I help early stage founders build and scale their sales playbook. That's it. So if someone wants to know how I do that, they can talk about it. If not, they can be like, well, I'm not interested in what she has to offer, but at least they understand, right? So don't have this be a rant, write it down, practice it, master your messaging. Number two, which comes after the elevator pitch, you need to have a process for outreach. There's a saying that I think it goes like, if you build it, they will come. If you build a product, people will come. And I'm sorry to break it to you, people will not come. It doesn't work that way. You need to have a process to go out and find customers, find people that are interested in what you have to offer. Even if you have a robust inbound funnel, you always want to be working on your outbound. Who are you trying to sell to? What are their titles? What are the sizes of the companies? Where do they live? What are their pain points? And then by using the messaging you've crafted in your elevator pitch, you can reach out and say, hey, John, I help early stage founders do X, Y, and Z. Is this something you're interested in? All you're trying to do at this early stage is get the low-hanging fruit, figure out who has a need for what I'm offering right now, and start those conversations. So 1 and 2 go together. Number 3, after you've started getting people's interest and people are willing to talk to you, you need to have a process. You need to have a process to convert someone from a user or a lead rather to a paying customer. What does that process look like? What are the different steps? How do you qualify someone? What does your demo look like? What is your pricing? How do you negotiate? How do you follow up? Do you have business use cases? How long is your sales cycle? Very early on, everything is a data gathering exercise. You don't know what you don't know. But you want to start documenting everything. So as you run that playbook, you'll start to become an expert at what's working, what's not working. Do not try to wing it. It will not work, and you will waste a lot of time and money. Number 4, your brand. What is your brand? Your brand is a consistent experience that customers have when they interact with you. For a lot of the B2B clients we work with, their audience, their customers live on LinkedIn. If you're direct to consumer, maybe your customers live on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. You need to start building a brand. How do you do it? You use storytelling. You start telling the story of your company. You start telling the story of trends you're seeing in the space, bottlenecks, why you built your product, why you, why now? So when you're doing that outreach and people go and look at your website, they look at your profile on LinkedIn, they have a basic idea of what it is that you do. And again, you're coming across as an expert. See, I'm repeating myself because all these themes interact with each other, right? And the last thing is, which I cannot see on my screen.
Timing.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. So timing is very important. You want to start selling right now. What I've seen a lot is that pre-product market fit, there's an obsession with technology, shipping features, making product this perfect thing, and then going into market with this perfect MVP. The idea is that early on, we don't know what's not working. Everything's an assumption. So timing is important, that you're building, selling, you're building, selling. Whatever data you're getting, you're going back to the drawing board. And depending on those responses you get from the market, you have an MVP that people actually want. Do not wait. The number 2 reasons why startups fail is no product market fit, running out of cash. If you're focusing all your time on the product, you're not selling, it's a pretty good way to run out of cash. You want to be going out, getting people onboarded, getting that cash flow in. And of course, it's going to help you to see, is this something that the market actually wants? So 5 things to master. John, how am I doing on time?
We are getting very close on time. So let's really quickly go through the 5 things not to do, like super quickly, and then maybe we can elaborate on them a bit during the Q&A if folks have questions about specific parts of them.
Perfect. So 5 things to avoid. We talked about this, so given that we don't have a lot of time, I'm not going to repeat myself too much. Do not assume people will come, go out and try to find customers. Number 2, I know I talked about the elevator pitch. Here's what I recommend. Whatever you come up with, write it down and deliver the same thing every single time. It's the same with sales scripts. It's the same with any sort of messaging. You cannot really test whether it works or not if you're saying an iteration of it every time you speak to someone. Craft one thing, say it every time, say it enough till you see if it sticks, and then change it. Don't try to do different things. It's going to confuse you. It's going to confuse your prospects. Number 3, I've seen this a lot with companies that have traction, that have interest in the market. They'll have a great sales call, and then they're like, well, we haven't heard back from the prospect. Okay, did you set up follow-up steps? No, we didn't. We figured if they're interested, they're going to come back. It doesn't happen. That's why it's called sales. That's why we have salespeople. You need to always follow up with the people you're talking to. Number 4, hiring too soon. Until you have signs of product market fit, you, the founder, need to be selling. If you hire a VP of sales, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And at this stage, VPs are typically they're quantitative oriented. They're not going to come in and build process. And if you hire a salesperson, salespeople do not have the ability, they do not have the tools to build processes. They like to go into companies, find a process that's laid out, plug right into it and start selling. It is your job to test the market and build processes for yourself. Then when you hire talent, they can come right into that. And I'm going to open it up to Q&A because I know I'm going over. I had
not
one
charging
more thing
is the one missing piece. Charge for your pilots, people, I think is the takeaway.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, with that, we can definitely move into Q&A. We've got probably 7-8 minutes or so for folks. And then we're going to do some live feedback sessions after that. Feel free to just unmute and ask.
I think my number 1 question is about follow-up. So like what are, like at various different stages of your company, what are suitable follow-ups?
So it depends on how your sales process is crafted and what your product is. But for example, in a classic B2B SaaS motion, your first step is lead gen. Your second step is qualifying your prospect, making sure they're ready, willing, and able to buy if they like what you offer. So understanding decision-making, understanding timing, understanding budget, understanding needs. After you go through that qualification process, you want to follow up and set a demo. You want to do that on a separate call. But if you're on a call with someone and they're like, yeah, I like it, let me get back to you, that really decreases your chances of having that next step. You always want to follow up while you're on that call. So for example, yeah, Coleman, sounds great. I'm looking at my calendar. Next week is open Monday to Wednesday. How does that work for you? You want to set up a time on the spot. Similarly, especially if you're pitching to multiple decision makers after the demo, let's say people say, yeah, it sounds good. I want to go back to my team, discuss it, and I'll get back to you. They will not get back to you. You want to have that next step on the calendar. So that's what I mean by following up. Always set up next steps on that initial call.
Yeah, that makes
Kofa,
sense.
you raised your hand. You should go for it.
Thank you. Yeah, so your last point is about not charging. Could you say more about like, do you, okay, give a very specific example. Like, let's say we build some tool that's so primitive that we don't even feel comfortable charging anyone because we just want people to test out. So could you say a little bit more at which point you could charge, and then perhaps not necessary money? Do you charge in other way, or like, we'd love to hear more. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking. So you're really asking two questions there. One is, I don't feel confident charging because I don't think my product is at that stage where I can charge. That's a mindset thing on your end. If you're having conversations with people and you're presenting a product and that they're able to try it out, whether that's in a sandbox environment or a very sort of early MVP, you need to be confident in asking them for money. You put in a lot of time to build it. They're going to be testing it out. You're going to be wasting engineering resources, time, answering questions, going back and forth. They need to be paying. And again, it starts with you believing that it's worth for people to pay for it. That's number one. Number two, it's a mental thing. It's an emotional thing where if I'm paying for something, it exponentially increases my chances of actually using it because I'm paying for it. So I feel the pain. I feel like, okay, I'm paying for this. I need to use it. I need to test it out. If I'm not paying you for it, I've seen it a lot with people that do unpaid pilots. And then 2 weeks after the pilot, they come back to me and say, the customer hasn't been active. Were you charging them? No. Okay, so how are you pushing them? How are you forcing them to engage so that after the pilot, they can make an educated decision whether they want to use your product or not? Free pilots tend to not work. And I absolutely do not recommend it. Even if it's a very small amount, it's not about the money that you're going to get. It's a matter of principle. It's like having a handshake that we're agreeing that we're in a partnership and you're going to try this and give me honest feedback, whether you feel this is something that's actually going to help you or not.
Carol, do you have an opinion on design partnerships quickly?
It depends. Can you give me an example?
Let's say you haven't built a product yet, but you get 3 to 5 companies to work with you to build a product side by side.
I don't think it's a good idea if you haven't built a product, even if it's a very sort of clunky initial product to have partners. I think it's good to do that initially and to have some solid assumptions and then go out and test the market. And I think we have a question in the chat. So George says, or Georgios, who I'm assuming is Greek like me, understand that hiring a sales exec too early can be a deadly mistake. What about hiring a contractor to produce lists of relevant target profiles and launch a mass LinkedIn campaign? So I think it's absolutely okay to hire someone to help you with lead gen, but I would give that person very little responsibility. So if you give them the criteria of the leads you're going after and you're going to hire someone to build a list on Sales Navigator, absolutely. But you need to be the one then communicating with those people, crafting the messaging. And to the example about LinkedIn Sales Navigator, your profile needs to look a certain way, going back to the social proof and the expertise. So when someone receives a message from you or an email from you, because the first thing they're going to go do is look at your LinkedIn, you come across as someone they want to talk to. But yeah, of course, I'm not against someone helping you with your lead gen or tech stack, as long, and did agree here as well, as long as you're the one leading that motion.
Okay, so with that, we're actually going to transition into the live feedback sessions. I'm sure many of you have additional questions that you'd love to ask, and I'm sure Carol is more than happy also to receive some folks over email as well, so we can get your email out after the presentation as well. But without further ado,